Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing something a little bit different. We're talking about Kickstarter. Now today we're going to talk about some exciting Kickstarters I am backing, or at least considering backing, as of June 2020. Now this is going to be fun because Kickstarter was actually one of the reasons how I really got into the whole board game hobby, because I was always looking for brand new games to find, and this was the platform that really launched my whole interest in the hobby, at least. Now as you're scrolling through Kickstarter, the artwork is always like the first thing that grabs your attention, since there are so many projects. So artwork is always the first thing that grabs my attention. And let's discuss the first one that you probably know is coming, and that is Nemesis. Awaken Realms, one of my favorite game publishers, if it's not already apparent from all the coverage I did on Lords of Hellas. I didn't back the original Nemesis because alien sci-fi isn't really my theme, and I also rarely back co-ops because our group, at least, we're very competitive and co-ops really aren't our thing. The gameplay for co-ops is a bit different. It's a genre that we don't really lean towards, but I've heard a lot of good things about Nemesis, and Lockdown looks really cool. So Nemesis seems to be a standalone expansion. We've got a lot of new heroes with some top-notch AR quality as expected. This is what Awaken Realms was known for. I think they started off as a miniature painting company. And I like how they're not standard classes either, from the survivor, janitor, the lab rat. The xenobiologist alone actually makes me want to back the game. The only other sci-fi game I backed was Hyperspace, but I think it would be really interesting to do some futuristic spaceship alien type B-roll. That's definitely something that I've never touched on before, but that would be very fun and exciting to do. Moving on, there seems to be a brand new game board, a bunch of new components. The stretch goals, I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of daily unlocks because it feels like it's something that is already going to come with the game versus like monetary unlocks, even though arguably that's kind of the same too, but at least there's a sense of the unknown when it comes down to unlocking these monetary stretch goals or social stretch goals. But with daily unlocks, it feels like it's already part of the game, so I feel like why not just show us all from the beginning if you're gonna do that, and then have actual stretch goals. But you know, that's a whole other topic. I think I just like the whole idea of like all of us working towards a specific goal instead of having something that's already gonna be included with the game already. But moving on, we have plastic door tokens. I love terrain miniatures. This really brings up the level of gameplay for me. I don't know why. It just feels so much more immersive when the terrain is like elevated, literally. Yeah, the door miniatures look really nice. I'm already a sucker for that already. But what's interesting though, it looks like some of the doors come whole, maybe, and the other ones, it seems like it's being pieced together because there's like little pegs on each side of the door. So maybe this is something that you kind of have to break down with certain actions. I think that's interesting. They have a Mars rover as a plastic token. I don't know if that's like a first player marker or if that's something that gets integrated to the game just yet. And it seems like they're also offering the base game along with the all-in pledge. Ooh, the carnivores look really cool. Like the butcher alone already gives me a bunch of ideas that I can do for photographing and filming this. So I might have a different perspective on approaching board games because I like to take pictures of them along with playing them. It looks so creepy with the two skulls. I love it. Okay, now let's get into the real stuff. I always get drawn into board games first because of the artwork, and then I look at the minis because I just like minis, okay? So that's definitely something that pulls me in. But the one deal breaker is always going to be the gameplay. So that one always decides whether or not I end up backing the game. And it looks like they have a set of brand new mechanics starting from a multi-level base. So it looks like you have to travel through different elevators or stairs as you are traversing the game. And each section also is controlled by a different power supply, which can be cut off at any second. And when that happens, elevators will stop working and corridors will sink into pitch black darkness. Interesting. So overall, it looks like they're gearing the gameplay towards a more tense and more strategic gameplay. I love that. There's more player interaction. I mean, there has to be, it's a cooperative, right? But I like how the darkness is something that can slow down aliens and other players. I can see why they're calling it cinematic gameplay. That's really cool. I don't know if I've ever experienced a game where you can adjust the terrain to affect other players. That's a really cool dynamic. Interesting idea for sure. And then next, they're talking about something called a contingency procedure. So this one represents like an emergency plan that only you can discover, and that knowledge that you end up finding out by revealing those orders or these tiles is something that you can choose to reveal to other players. And if I'm interpreting it correctly, the picture shows one contingency plan where it says kill all with knowledge less than 5, which I think would be really fun for like sabotage and eliminating other players based on something that you activate across the board. Not too sure what it is exactly. I feel like the description is a little bit hazy here. So I would like a little more detail about what it is exactly, but just from like a first glance, I'm wondering if it's something that all players are going to work towards in the beginning I'm wondering if this is a mechanic that dies off as the game goes on. Like once everything's revealed, do they matter still? And also, is it as drastic as like a kill all switch? Because how often will players have a knowledge less than 5? Does that mean all players die and do they respawn? But in general, I would rather have it drastic to make you overly cautious than to have something that is too safe to play. Okay, I think Fear the Dark might be my favorite mechanic. I think this is really cool. So like, it supposedly increases player interaction because you're trying to coordinate when the light's on, when the light's off. And there's temporary light sources, so if you travel without light, it makes event cards more likely to harm the player if you're traveling in the dark. So there's a bunch of different penalties if you're traveling without light. There's also temporary light sources. So I think this is very story driven, very, very immersive element that would for sure make for some interesting play interaction. So I really like the idea of Fear in the Dark. That's really cool. So some quick overall thoughts. It's obviously a very good looking game as expected from AR. Just to talk about the artwork for a bit, I really like how the title Nemesis is like glitched out, and then Lockdown combined with the red portal adds to that kind of severity and that tension that you're gonna get from the game, which matches perfectly with the mechanics as we're reading through it here. The new lights on and lights off mechanic sounds very interesting. I like how they're focusing on tenseness and like a drastic situation. It's always more fun when everyone's kind of like freaking out, working towards one specific goal or multiple goals which combine into one. Whether or not I'm backing it, I would say I'm like 70 to 80% on board. It does sound way more interesting than the original for sure. The only thing that's turning me away from it is that it is a co-op, but it does say that you can play semi-co-op, and it also says that it can be 1 to 5 players. So I'm definitely gonna wait and see how the stretch goals are before committing for sure. But overall, with the new mechanics, new classes, new map, new lights on, lights off switch, all that sounds very interesting. I like the emotions that this game is kind of gearing you towards. If I were to back it, I don't know if I would get the original. The part of me that is a completionist wants to, but the other part of me is like, I think Lockdown feels very separate from the original Nemesis, but let me know your thoughts. How do you feel about this game? Are you guys backing Nemesis? Or if you backed the original, why'd you back that? I would love to hear your thoughts. Next game I wanted to talk about was Kemet. Now I know this one was one of Rodney's from Watch It Played. This was like one of his favorite games, which is why I'm looking at it to begin with. But the whole ancient Egypt theme already has me sold. Ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, those themes just in general will win me over very easily. I like the title, Blood and Sand. It's very dark. It's very me. I'm always one for dark themes. Okay, so here it says you play as one of the Egyptian gods. Well, that makes it easy. Moving on. Just kidding. Am I kidding? Am I kidding? So let's see, you have 5 different actions and you're building and upgrading 3D pyramids. You can buy different powers, fight and take control of other temples. If any game involves confrontation and battling and fighting and just competing in general, conquering, I'm 99% on board already. So you have 10 creature minis. There's a scorpion and a sphinx. Gold tokens, individual player boards, unique minis for each color. Yeah, I think I'm in for the God Pledge. Yep, that makes it easy. If you played the original Kemet, let me know down below what your thoughts are on the original Kemet and whether or not you're going to be upgrading to Blood and Sand. Game. And the third and last game I want to talk about for now is Chai. Let's finish off with a quick talk about Chai's latest expansion, High Tea. Now the reason why I backed the first one is because it was very, very family friendly. Our whole family and friends, we are very tea people and we love board games. So combine tea and board games and you get fun. So I like how it's a very light family game, which is why it's so easy to teach everybody. So this was a big go-to game. It was always a big hit in our family. And it seems like the expansion is adding on new ability boards with 12 unique abilities and transparent dice. Oh, they look really cool. They look like mini sugar cubes you put in your tea. So I like that. I like that aesthetic touch. It's very cool. It's very vibrant. And it seems like there are going to be more unlocks as the campaign progresses. But for 20 bucks an expansion like this, it's very hard to argue. So I'm definitely backing the expansion for sure. I might pick up the base game too to give to a friend or two because they really like this game. The ones that would enjoy this at least aren't into the heavier games like Nemesis that we talked about earlier, Lords of Hellas. But they had a lot of fun with Chai, so I feel like I might get them a copy and an expansion of course for myself. So those are my thoughts on 3 Kickstarter games for this month of June, for now at least, in the beginning of June. It's actually May 31st as of the day of this recording, but you know what I mean. But what I am more interested in is, what are you backing this month for Kickstarter? What other games are you looking at? Is there anything interesting I should know about? What are your thoughts on these 3 games that we talked about here? Let me know down in the comments below. More specifically, are you on board for Lockdown? And are you also waiting for stretch goals like me before you commit, or have you already committed for the Nemesis pledge? That is it for our Kickstarter overview, discussion, talk video, and I'll see you all for more videos coming up soon this week.